Thank you for the invitation, for bringing me here. Yeah, I think there are two main points why it's so important to talk today about standardization or standards. The first is, yes, because this is about a standard, the implementation of a standard. But the other one is also because standardization helps to innovate. And we heard it's very important to prove that products are working. And one way to prove that is standardization. But this is especially tricky when it comes to innovative products, products that are new and that work for one use case, but not overall. And that's what's our game. That's where we come into the play. So my name is Sebastian Vogel. I work for CEN-CENELEC, so the Committee for Standardization and Electrotechnical Standardization. But yeah, so the 4 points that I would like to talk about today is first, who are we actually? What is a standard? Then go more into environmental technologies. What are we doing in that regard? And trends and conclusions, so like forecasts of standardization. I think my time is quite limited, so I'm also going to speed it up a bit. I think we're going to share the slides, and then we have to break for questions or go more into depth. So in Europe, so we're talking about the European standardization system. There are 3 main organizations that are allowed to develop standards, so like by European law. This is the ETSI for electronic communications, so like Bluetooth, all of these things. Actually, Bluetooth not, because that's a consortium. But then the next one is CENELEC for electrotechnology, and the third one is CEN for the rest, actually. So most standards are actually CEN standards. However, probably you don't know these organizations because most of our standards are not published by CEN-CENELEC or ETSI, but actually by other organizations. So we see at the international level, we have ISO, IEC, and ITU. These are the international global standards, and I think these are the bodies that are mostly known to the people. Then on the national level, we have the national standardization bodies. So in Poland, we have one, in Austria, we have 2, but for every country, there are some. And all of these are, or mostly, are also based in law. The international ones are not. They are based in treaties. What we are doing in between is going to be explained in a later slide. But we coordinate the national approaches so that they can publish standards, and we adopt international standards to make sure that the global technologies are also adopted in Europe. And that's also what makes the European standardization unique and different to other standardization systems, for instance, in the US. But firstly, yeah, so we have 34 countries collected in CEN and CENELEC. That's more than the European Union, and that's because we're not an EU agency. We are a private organization, and we also have, for instance, Turkey or Iceland as a member. It's 43 national standardization bodies, because, yes, top left, Austria, there's the CEN member and there's the CENELEC member. So it's always a bit tricky to differentiate. So I said that the European standardization system is very different to other ones, and this becomes obvious when we talk about a standard itself. So what is a standard? Often people say, yes, this is standard, this is what we do, this is standard practice, but that's actually not what a standard is. That's maybe a de facto standard or colloquial standard. But a formal standard is actually defined in law, in European legislation, and it has to be adopted by a European standardization body. So what makes us different from other countries? If CEN, CENELEC, or ETSI only CEN or CENELEC adopt a standard, it must be identically adopted also by all of our members. So if we adopt a standard, for instance, 14034, all of our members, Germany, Italy, all of them have to adopt the identical standard. They're not allowed to have any differences to them. This is a major difference to other countries where they don't have to adopt them, where they can have adjustments, divergence, but in Europe, we all have the same standard. And that's actually the basic principle of the European Common Market. We have a product in Switzerland, and we can sell it in other countries as well because of the technical specifications. Yes. So here, this is how a standard looks like. For an EN-ISO standard, so this is a standard that comes from ISO, we adopt it, and therefore all of our members have to adopt it. Earlier we saw a picture of the ISO standard, and actually the only difference here is that we have a cover letter saying that all of our members have adopted this standard. So it's a proof that this document, this product works in Europe. What is a standard? It's a technical specification. It outlines how to do something. It is a voluntary application. That's very important. It is not law. If you follow a standard, you may follow it, but you don't have to. But if you do, you can prove that your technology works. Of course, there are different ways to prove it. We just provide a means to do that. Then it is adopted by a recognized standardization body. We have 3 in Europe. Of course, then all member states have their own ones. It is used as a rule, guideline, or definition, so voluntary per definition. And it is for a repeatable way of doing something. It's like a manual, a receipt to cook something. You can do it over and over again. Yes, so in Europe, there are a lot of standards. About 25,000 standards for CEN and CENELEC, and then ETSI has its own standards on top of that. If we put it in a global context, China has about 50,000, but they have a very different standardization system, so it's different. The US has fewer, way fewer. So we have European standards. That's the main deliverable that we produce. The documents that must be followed by all of our member countries on a voluntarily application. Then we have technical specifications. That's like pre-normative. It's not a standard. You, as a member, you can adopt it, not identically, you can follow it. But you can say, like here in Poland, we have different things. But we adopt it. It's just a way, and we're going to go towards a standard. Technical reports are more for case studies, often, not always. They list different use cases, and then Europe can learn from it because they are published in all of our countries. Workshop agreements, I'm going to talk about this a bit later because this is where we foster innovation, research innovation, and guides how to implement standardization, how to develop standards. There are 2 big points to note about how we work globally. So for CEN, we adopt ISO standards, but we also, of course, mostly develop our own standards. 34% of all of our standards are actually ISO standards, like the 14034. This means that this standard was developed at ISO, and we adopt it. 34% of all of them are like this. In CENELEC, this is different, and the interesting part here is that we see the electrotechnical world is way much more globalized than the normal world, you could call it. 74% of our standards are actually globally developed and not within Europe. Of course, this means that European industry works in the IEC committees. So it is European work, but globalized, way much more than in the CEN world. Yes, so more about environmental technologies, and then we get into innovation in that regard. So the European Commission has started a high-level forum on standardization, and this is also heavily aligned with our priorities, the Strategy 2030. Green and digital transition, and these are the key topics that should be standardized in 2024 and the years to come. We see it's, green and digital, critical raw materials, hydrogen, photovoltaic, carbon removal in construction products, and so on, electric vehicle charging infrastructure is a thing that my team is also currently working on. And on the other side, we already heard today, cybersecurity is a very big topic, the digital product passport spanning across all fields, artificial intelligence, and so on. So especially, actually for all of them, innovation is a big part, and we have to standardize it. And that's challenging, so to say, especially because of the public attention to it and the legal implications. So let's go more into innovation, because these are innovative topics per se. So why actually standardize things? So a standard ensures compatibility, comparability, and interoperability. I mean, yes, three buzzwords, but this is basically what all standards do. It's the one thing that aligns all of them. When we have a standard, it also means that industry can trust this standard, because it's 34 countries, 34 national delegations with technical committees in every country that agree on this product or this service. So it means if a company is following the standard, you can trust this product, and that's very important for market uptake and acceptance. This is also for the next point on the macroeconomic level. If there is a good standardization uptake, it's also reflected in macroeconomics. Then for individual companies, it's similar. If a company follows standards, this shows good practice and therefore can boost profitability. Then the green point here is about international networks, especially in electrotechnology. We've seen 74% of standards are developed internationally, and therefore this also means that if you contribute to a standard, if you co-develop a standard, you also know where innovation is coming from, because you're at the core of the developments. And then the last one is cross-industry innovation, and this is also where my work comes into again, because we also want to learn from other industries. And standardization is not supposed to be in a silo, a big buzzword. It's supposed to cross silos. And that's actually something that we try to actively change over the recent years. So these workshop agreements that I mentioned earlier are not standards. They are workshop agreements. So that's something that we do to something for innovative research products or services that are not good enough to become a standard. They don't have the approval of all the countries, but they have shown that they can become something in the future. So what we do in these cases, for instance, with a Horizon Europe project, that's a good example, we bring them together with other industry partners, with our members, and we discuss how could this look like in a standard. We do this over several workshops, can take weeks up to months, and then in the end we have an agreement. And we publish this agreement in all of our members, and this agreement then, over the years, should be developed into a standard. That's the goal. And this is actually something that we try to do more and more, because there is a lot of innovation going on, but it also has to be standardized because of the reason mentioned before, to ensure trust into new products. And yeah, I've just listed a couple here from this year. They cover all fields. Yeah. Another thing we do to pinpoint at innovation, because standardization is often perceived as very conservative, we try to bring more publicity to researchers, especially research projects. So we have like also the Standards and Innovation Awards. We do yearly workshops where we highlight new products that have managed to be standardized. Like here, this was, I think, also a Horizon Europe project that actually liaised with a technical committee and developed a standard out of a research product, directly a standard, which was very, very impressive. But it's possible. If you have a good idea and it gets accepted by our members, it can become a standard. There's nothing speaking against it. So about environment, we already heard about the Sustainable Development Goals, and I think for all larger organizations this is very important, and that's also why we have changed our approach a couple of years ago and still are adapting it to find out what are we actually doing with the standardization system and how does it help the Sustainable Development Goals, how are we contributing to it. And we've done a very big mapping exercise for all standards, but also for all technical committees, which are about, I think, 400 technical committees in Europe. I think like 200,000 involved experts, so it's a big system. I've picked two SDGs here. And then if, for instance, if we look at affordable and clean energy, we heard about energy earlier today. A big point for us currently is eco-design, also because there is a legal mandate from the Commission for us to work on this. We have 25 technical committees to work on standards. So this is quite a big exercise for us as well. If it comes to climate action, we have actually created, I think last year, a new technical committee to not work on products or services, but to try to bridge everything that we're doing, everything that this industry doing, with a technical committee on climate change. And in the electrotechnical world with a technical committee on environment as well, climate change and environment, so they don't develop like product standards per se, but they try to bridge what other TCs are doing, break silos. Yes. So why should everyone work on standardization? I'm trying to make a business case here. So standards are shaped by those who contribute. Usually our standards are developed from our member states. So if you're in Poland, you can join the Polish standardization body, Czechia, and so on. They develop usually standards. They bring them to the European level or to the international level, but they're always developed by the ones that contribute them. They're not developed by the standardization bodies. They're developed by the people writing them. They're open and developed in a transparent process. We have very clear rules, very stringent rules, and we're regulated by law, which means that we have to be open and we have to include consumer associations, environmental associations, all of these things. It's important, but it's also the part why standards build trust, because we include all the stakeholders. We are market-driven, so standards always show the state of the art, not always, but most of the time, because there's also a balance between proven design and state of the art. So they are market-driven. If you follow a standard, you know that you are following a good product. Then finally, they're recognized by public authorities and regulations, and some standards support regulation. So for instance, cybersecurity is a big topic. The Cybersecurity Act is, I think it's published already, but then we receive a legal mandate to work on standards, and if you follow these standards, then they show or they indicate the compliance with the law. So this is actually also a very big thing for us, and there are similar initiatives also in national countries. So I have no time left. Perfect to start the last slides. Just more about trends and foresight. I work in the innovation department, so this is where we work on. All of the standardization bodies work on finding out where we can standardize new things. So ISO is doing this, the IEC is doing it, and there's also a joint technical committee between ISO and IEC. They're also doing it. The Joint Research Committee Center, Joint Research Center of the European Commission is doing it. We're also doing it, everybody's doing it, and we also have like a fancy word for it because standardization is a lot about abbreviations. But yeah. So we try to see what's out there, we try to screen the horizon similar to what we've heard before, but our goal is always to find the consensus of products, not to find the single products, but to find out what is accepted by the market already. And then we also try to provide input. And this usually happens with standardization roadmaps. For instance, with the one on industrial symbiosis. So how can one industry gain from another industry, how they can collaborate and create win-win situations. And this we do with the RISES project, also EU funded, and also with YETU on board, where we develop roadmaps to provide input into the standardization community. Another one with light means light category vehicles, so two-wheelers, three-wheelers. Yes, so to sum it up, the standardization system is unique in the world because it it enforces one standard in all European countries, therefore creating a single market. It responds to the sustainable development goals. We try to respond to innovative technologies, accounting for that. And yes, we're open for innovative ideas, especially when it comes to like CEN-CENELEC workshop agreements.